It's the first Sunday of the month, and you know what that means. The patrons get to pick the Pokemon this time, and they have selected Xatu. This mystical seer of the future has been around since Generation 2, as Will of the Elite Four had 2 of them, with one as his lead and the second as his strongest Pokemon. And fans of the original Pokemon Mystery Dungeon and its recent remakes will be familiar with those games Xatu, which sits atop the hill of the ancients and plays a crucial part of the story. Today we'll see if Xatu's clairvoyance assisted it in the competitive scene. And so, we ask, how good was Xatu actually? And in this video, we'll be going over these competitive formats. Alright, here comes the good old U-bomb. Unfortunately, Xatu didn't make any waves at all in its debut generation's OU metagame, as its combination of stats, typing, and move pool did not offer any chance of a niche. There was no reason to use it over superior psychic types, such as the all-around excellent Exeggutor, the rapid spinning Starmie, or the other OU viable psychics in Jinx, Espeon, and Alakazam. Granted, Xatu was the only one with a Spikes and an Earthquake immunity, but that hardly made up for its significant drop-off in stats and move pool. It was the same story in UU too. Psychic competition was even fiercer, with the Slow Twins and Hypno acting as integral defensive stops to much of the metagame, while Mr. Mime was a fierce offensive threat. And NU wasn't looking so hot for it either. Initially, Mr. Mime was ruling over the tier, which meant there was no reason to use Xatu, and once Mr. Mime left, Raichu took over, with its prominence meaning that Xatu wouldn't be able to get a lot done. However, eventually Raichu was banned, and Xatu came into its own, towering over the rest of the metagame as it became the #1 Pokemon in the tier. Its speed was excellent, and it dominated several of the metagame's other top Pokemon, notably Weezing and Primeape. Very few viable Pokemon were resistant to Psychic. The fact that Pokemon like Magnemite, Houndour, and Sneasel were used was testament to how dangerous Xatu was. Xatu did technically wall other Xatu, but that was exactly why it sometimes ran Hidden Power Electric. That and the slightly harder hit on Dugong, putting more pressure on it with Spikes down. That said, Xatu wasn't overpowered. It wasn't ridiculously strong or bulky, and plenty of common Pokemon such as Magmar and Ninetales traded hits with it well. It just got the best use out of its excellent typing, as in the early generations, in metagames where there aren't many Dark and Steel types, the best Psychic type tends to dominate. And GSC NU Xatu was a prime example of this, especially as that was the generation where only flying types were immune to Spikes, giving Xatu the unique, excellent ability to passively outlast its Spikes weak switch-ins. Gen 3 was an unfortunate one for Xatu like in the previous generation. It was completely unviable in OU and not really worth using in UU, but in a perplexing twist, its usage wasn't low enough to drop it to NU again. There's little question that Xatu would have dunked on the tier with ease, thwarting Tier King Hitmonchan, but it was sadly denied that opportunity. Now, it wasn't bad in UU per se, there were just better options. Xatu did get great new moves in the 3rd generation, like Calm Mind, Baton Pass, and Wish. The problem was that other Psychic types got these moves as well. Neither Xatu's immunity to Spikes and Earthquake, nor its choice between 2 good abilities in Early Bird and Synchronize was impressive enough to justify its worst overall typing in comparison to staples of the tier in Lunatone, Solrock, Grumpig, and Hypno. The former 2 packed crucial resistances to normal and flying, while matching Xatu's ground immunity thanks to Levitate. This superior defensive typing allowed Lunatone to Baton Pass Calm Minds and Solrock to threaten with physical attacks with far greater ease than Xatu. Furthermore, Grumpig was incredibly bulky on the special side, possessed built-in fire and ice resistances with its thick fat ability, and could sweep with Calm Mind thanks to its great coverage in the elemental punches. Finally, just like in GSC UU, Hypno's Insomnia ability even completely one-upped Xatu's Early Bird. Instead of waking up early, it wouldn't be put to sleep at all. Since Hypno also had access to Baton Pass, if one desired to use Xatu's ability to pass both Calm Mind boosts as well as provide Wish support, it would be better done by Hypno. The one thing Xatu did that no other Psychic could match was its quadruple resistance to fighting, alongside its Spikes and Earthquake immunity, which made it a pretty good switch to Bandit Hitmonlee. Gligar was better overall at this. It didn't quad resist fighting, but it packed immense physical bulk, and more importantly, wasn't vulnerable to common coverage like Shadow Ball, HP Rock, or Rock Slide like Xatu was. However, if one needed a Spikes and Earthquake immune fighting resist that Baton Pass Calm Minds and provided Wish support, then Xatu was the Pokemon for the job. This was, of course, incredibly specific, as it was worth exchanging the Spikes and Earthquake immunity for a better overall Pokemon in Hypno, but remember, Xatu was not necessarily a bad Pokemon, and it wouldn't be bad if it was used. It just had some really tough competition that would usually outclass it. The 4th generation piled on challenges for Xatu. Stealth Rock, Pursuit becoming more widespread since it was now physical, and Power Creep, the bane of Pokemon already struggling to get by, as new items, moves, and Pokemon alike were generally not good news if the Pokemon did not receive some kind of buff itself, and Xatu was no exception. Now Gen 4 did give Xatu some great new moves. The biggest were the amazing instant recovery of Roost, and in Platinum the superb coverage of Heat Wave. Xatu also received U-Turn, a slight upgrade over Baton Pass if it wasn't passing Calm Mind, and also in Platinum, Trick, which could be useful for crippling an unexpected special wall with Choice Scarf. However, these weren't going to be enough for Xatu to get by in UU, as the tier's psychic types were stronger than ever. With Alakazam's sheer speed and power, Uxie and Mesper's endless utility, and other great options in Slowbro and Exeggutor, there was just nothing Xatu could offer over them. It couldn't even Baton Pass because Hypno still existed to outclass it completely, and this time with a Stealth Rock neutrality. And just to really rub salt in the wound, the Pendulum Swinger now had Nasty Plot, allowing it to make its teammates even more dangerous. With nothing to offer UU, Xatu dropped to NU, but it was a generation late and a $1 short, as Power Creep resulted in Hypno dropping to NU as well, and it became one of the metagame's best. When your main competition is one of the best in the tier, you're not going to be used a lot, and that was the case for Xatu. It just couldn't catch a break at all anywhere in Gen 4. But the unfortunately stops here, as things finally picked up for Xatu in the 5th generation. The Dream World blessed Xatu with one of the most incredible abilities in the game, Magic Bounce, which would reflect back non-attacking moves such as Leech Seed, Taunt, Roar, Status, and the biggest of all, Entry Hazards. When Stealth Rock was the best move in the game, being able to not only block it, but send it back at its user was simply incredible. And for the first time, players searched for some sort of niche for Xatu in OU, and they found one on Sun teams. Ninetales was far more fragile than Politoed and Tyranitar, especially due to Stealth Rock weakness, so Sun teams sought out Dugtrio to help trap them, as well as Heatran. They preferred a Sash set on Dugtrio, since the Sash, Ninetales' health, and especially Volcarona's health were all prone to Stealth Rock. These teams couldn't rely entirely on Rapid Spinners. While they did pack Fortress or Donphan, they needed more. They needed to prevent those rocks from going up in the first place. Enter Magic Bounce. Xatu did have competition with fellow Psychic type Magic Bouncer Espeon, as players facilitated between the two, leaning more towards Xatu for its reliable recovery in any weather, with Roost, as opposed to Espeon's Morning Sun. It also resisted Ferrothorn's Power Whip and could Roost stall Gyro Ball, allowing it to block another Hazard Setter. Xatu's superior bulk alongside Rocky Helmet let it switch into the ever-common Stealth Rock Tyranitar without instantly dying as well. The idea was to switch Xatu into Tyranitar, preventing Stealth Rock. Of course, Tyranitar beats Xatu one-on-one, but it was all part of the plan. With maximum defense investment, Xatu could take a Crunch and spam Roost, forcing Tyranitar to use Crunch several times. It would eventually be KO'd, but if and when Tyranitar did KO Xatu, then Dugtrio would come in afterwards to finish it off, with Tyranitar having been chipped into Earthquake KO range thanks to the Rocky Helmet chip, thus winning the Weather War and preventing Stealth Rock in one fell swoop. Espeon couldn't do this, as Espeon would simply die to Crunch, and even if it ran Rocky Helmet, it wouldn't do enough for Sash Dugtrio to KO T-Tar, allowing T-Tar to still put up rocks. Come Black and White 2, and it wasn't even a contest anymore. Xatu established itself as the entirely superior choice, as it completely countered the dangerous new Technician Breloom, bouncing back Spore, and resisting its stab with ease, including a quadruple resistance to Focus Punch. It was also able to use Heat Wave alongside Magic Bounce to burn up Ferrothorn, Fortress, and Scizor. Even after Chlorophyll was banned, Xatu remained crucial on Sun teams, pairing with Dugtrio to remove Tyranitar and Heatran, allowing Cresselia and Volcarona to go berserk. But Xatu's usage dropped off a cliff when Arena Trap was banned. Arena Trap specifically because after Dugtrio was banned, then Xatu enabled Diglett in its place. But Xatu had an excellent long run in the tier and remained viable even after its playstyle had been completely neutered. Overall, Xatu was the real deal. Thanks to Magic Bounce, it was a huge piece of many of the best Sun teams throughout the generation. Having said that, Xatu wasn't used on every Sun team, and thus had relatively low overall usage. So it fell to UU, and it wasn't as prominent there, as there wasn't something as overwhelmingly powerful as Sun for its magic bouncing to enable. But it did find itself on one of the most difficult to handle, if a little offbeat team styles in the tier, Volt Turn, which chained users of Volt Switch and U-Turn together for ridiculous constant pressure. The problem with repeatedly using switch moves is racking up entry hazard damage on your own Pokemon, but Xatu Xatu prevented that from being a problem while maintaining the Volt turn pressure with its own U-turn. It was risky against some stealth rockers, namely Rhyperior, but with Prediction and Grass Knot, it got the job done. It was a risk worth taking. Volt turn was one of the most frenetic, dangerous playstyles in the metagame, and Darmanitan, Zapdos, and friends couldn't function without Xatu. So overall, Gen 5 was a great one for Xatu, as weirdly it was better in OU than in UU, but it was a terrific supporting Pokemon nonetheless. Also, we're not quite done with Gen 5 though, because Xatu's pre-evolution, Natu, also got Magic Bounce, and could bulk itself up with Eviolite, giving it a niche in both RU and NU. It was a limited niche, but a niche nonetheless. In RU, it completely stuffed the common Spikers, Quillfish, and Roselia, and Ferrocy, while not fearing anything from big stealth rockers in Steelix, Uxie, and Rough Skin Druddigon. As a bonus, Natu absolutely stuffed fighting moves, helping save off dangerous threats in Medicham and Hitmonlee. And of course, it had its issues, as in not being able to handle other stealth rockers in Aerodactyl, Golurk, and Moldbreaker Druddigon, as the latter's ability cut right through Magic Bounce and allowed it to set up rocks unperturbed. But Natu was a surprisingly legitimate choice, even seeing some tournament usage. Natu was also great in NU, as it completely shut down the irritating Tangela, offered a perfect answer to Alomomola's Toxic, blanked the dangerous Choice Band Sock's close combat, and wound up severely annoying stealth rockers. That still a niche choice, of course, but being able to prevent the opponent's stealth rock was huge in a metagame where Charizard was so good that it regularly accepted taking 50% from stealth rock. Imagine the payoff if it didn't have that restriction. Overall, Natu helped its evolutionary line have a niche in every sub-Ubers tier in the 5th generation, climbing up the totem pole in the process. Pun very much intended. Generation 6 nixed permanent weather, and without Weather Wars, and with new Magic Bounce users in Mega Diancie and Sableye, Xatu was no longer worth dedicating a team slot to. Thus, it tumbled through the tiering rung once again, eventually landing in NU, and there it was excellent. It completely shaped the tier, forcing players into using stealth rockers like Rhydon and Piloswine that could beat it. That wasn't even necessarily enough though, as it was still being incredibly annoying even if it faced one of those rockers, as it could pivot in as they used Stealth Rock, thinking Xatu wouldn't switch in for fear of their stab moves. After bouncing their rocks back at them, it would pivot out as they attacked, leaving them not only without rocks, but having set up rocks against themselves. It was downright infuriating. Plus, even if they hit it with an attack, the standard bulky Xatu was just tanky enough to withstand the hit and roost off the damage, removing its flying typing and thus its weakness to the attack that hit it. It also threatened the hell out of Rhydon in particular, thanks to Grass Knot. Even in a scenario where Rhydon survived the Grass Knot and KO'd Xatu back, it would still be without rocks, allowing a teammate of Xatu's to come in and force Rhydon out. Thanks to Rhydon's low speed, it would be difficult for it to set the rocks up once Xatu had brought it down to low health, meaning Xatu was more than capable of fulfilling its anti-hazard duties even against a Pokemon that threatened it. Xatu had several great movesets to choose between. Its primary set was the utility variant with U-turn and or Thunder Wave. However, it could boost and sweep with Calm Mind, and unlike most Calm Mind sweepers, it couldn't be faced out except by the incredibly rare Dragon Tail, and it bounced back Toxics. Finally, it could run an immediate all-out offensive set, threatening much of the metagame with maximum special attack investment alongside Life Orb and optimal coverage in both Heat Wave and Grass Knot. This proved it was more than just its ability, that it was not just an anti-hazard machine. It was a terrific Pokemon in its own right. It had incredibly high usage, and anyone who wanted to win would use some form of Xatu. It was one of the very best Pokemon in ORAS NU and defined much of what was good and what wasn't in the metagame. And despite power creep, Natu continued to be the little bird that could. It was able to find a niche, albeit small, in PU, which spoke to just how powerful an ability Magic Bounce was. It was able to thwart Golem and Roselia, just like in the previous generation, and was a near staple of Shedinja teams. Natu's issue was the excess of special attackers in the tier, since it invested all its bulk in HP and physical defense to stop as many stealth rockers as possible. It couldn't invest in special defense, which left it on the frailer side even with Eviolite. Regardless, it still had a nice little role in ORAS PU, which was cool, because after all, this is a first stage unevolved Pokemon we're talking about. And while it wasn't at the pinnacle of the metagame like it had been in ORAS, Generation 7 saw Xatu continue to be an absolute force in NU. Being able to completely stuff common rockers in Steelix, Torterra, and Ferrocene was invaluable since it allowed the king of the metagame, Incineroar, to switch around uninhabited, as well as facilitating other massively dangerous stealth rock weak threats like Aerodactyl, Braviary, Delphox, Magmortar, and the Megas Abomasnow and Glalie. As always, even the stealth rockers that were supposed to beat it, like Rhydon and Piloswine, could be played around with good prediction. Xatu left many players utterly exasperated. This wasn't to say it was invincible, and of course it had its issues, namely strong pursuits from Sneasel and Houndoom, as well as the occasional Moldbreaker Drotagon. That said, Xatu remained remarkably reliable. This time around, it primarily stuck to its bulky pivot set, but that was just fine. The metagame was full of dangerous threats, namely the aforementioned Pokemon that Xatu was better off bringing in with U-turn rather than trying to go on the offensive itself. These offensive threats also appreciated bulky Xatu's ability to keep Stealth Rock off the field as effectively as possible. Xatu also softened the field up for them with the chip it scattered from its Rocky helmet. In addition to making Steelix regret going for Heavy Slam almost as much as it would Stealth Rock, it notably punished just about every move from the tier's fighting types, Hariyama, Gallade, and most importantly, the incredibly common Scarf Passimian. Overall, Xatu was an excellent Pokemon in NU once again, significantly contributing to the landscape of the tier and being a consistent performer game in and game out. Natu found itself with a small niche in PU once again. It was able to thwart a significant amount of excellent stealth rockers, as Torterra, Mudsdale, Regirock, and Ferrocene was an impressive list of Pokemon to be handling. While higher risk, it could potentially even mess with Alolan Sandslash with Roost and Reflect. But of course, Natu had its issues, as it was held back by certain stealth rockers like Lycanroc and Golurk, as well as an abundance of knockoff and pursuit. However, for an NFE Pokemon, it was surprisingly useful in PU once again. Generation 8 has given Xatu some excellent new tools, and with it, a place as one of RU's best Pokemon, at least at the time of this video. Heavy duty boots are an excellent item, as it means that if Stealth Rock goes up, Xatu won't be useless until it is defogged or rapid spinned away. It can continue to block status and spikes unbothered by rocks. Xatu also loves that Pursuit is no longer around, as it doesn't have to fear Drapion trapping and KOing it. With boots handling Stealth Rock and no Pursuit, two of the biggest thorns in the side of Xatu's longevity are gone, and thus it tends to stick around for a long time. Finally, Teleport is an excellent upgrade over U-turn, as its negative priority ensures that Xatu will safely get its teammate on the field. It easily switches into several common hazard setters in Mudsdale and Garbodor, while not having to worry about having a bad matchup against a Stealth Rocker, since it can still be useful thanks to boots. While Xatu sticks with its utility set, thanks to boots, it gets to show off how it is useful beyond just hazard and status bouncing. It also comes with the excellent benefit of checking fighters such as Hitmonlee and Passimian, as well as getting its dangerous teammates in safely with Teleport. Overall, who knows how RU will be shaken up with further DLC metagame shifts, but for now, Xatu is absolutely excellent in it. And even if the worst happens, it's hard to see it dropping past NU, if it even reaches there. Heavy duty boots were certainly an Arceus send for it. And that's it. So how good was Xatu actually? Well, 3 of the 4 times it's wound up in NU, it's been an absolutely terrific Pokemon, including being the best Pokemon in the NU metagame in its debut generation of GSC. Gens 3 and 4 were rough for it, but Gen 5 showed that all it took to make a struggling Pokemon viable was a strong new ability. Take note, Game Freak, it's not that much to ask for, is it? It shot Xatu into tournament-winning teams in OU, as well as creating niches for little Natu fluttering behind it as well. Look at how small it is, it's just adorable. Anyway, without Sun in the picture, Xatu dropped back to the lower tiers, but it hasn't eased up off the gas. It's been terrific wherever it's wound up, and is currently continuing that trend in Generation 8. Overall, Xatu isn't a world beater or anything, but it has been a terrific support Pokemon throughout its career. Thanks for watching, everyone, and a big thanks to our patrons for continued support of our videos, and for voting for this Pokemon for this month's Patron Pick. And if you liked the video and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to False Swipe Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content. And in the comments, I want to know what do you think about competitive Xatu? How would you change it? What would you give it in addition to Magic Bounce? Would you give it something else even though it already got Magic Bounce? Whatever it is, let me know in the comments. And follow my crew on these social media platforms. And that's all I got. See you next time, everyone.